It's money trying to buy the game.
Yeah.
It's trying to buy respectability. The game of golf we played was because we loved the sport.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We never played it for money.
By the time you reach an age like 85, people assume you're meant to fade quietly into the background, put your feet up, and live in the past, but that's not how it truly feels at all, because what comes back to you isn't the trophies or the wins, it's the people, the men you watched, competed against, and learned from, the ones who shaped how you see this wild, beautiful, and sometimes lonely game of golf. Golf strips you down and forces you to face yourself, alone, with no one to hide behind and no excuses when a shot goes wrong, and because of that you start noticing everything. How players walk, how they breathe before pulling the trigger, how they absorb disappointment, and how they turn pressure into calm control. Over time, I realized I was learning just as much from the players beside me as I ever did practicing on my own, so when I'm asked to name the 5 golfers I admire most, it's never a quick list. It's like opening an old drawer of memories, where each man represents a lesson, a season, a turning point that changed something real in my life. At this stage, I feel a responsibility to share those lessons, not as a polished speech, but as an honest conversation, and that story always begins with the man who taught me what true willpower looks like, Ben Hogan. I've never seen another player carry silence the way he did. The first time I watched him, it felt as if the entire course held its breath. Because his presence wasn't loud or flashy, it was absolute, every movement coming from somewhere far deeper than mechanics, as if the club were no longer just equipment but an extension of a decision already made inside him, solid, focused, and completely unshakable. Long before I ever faced him, I already knew Ben Hogan was the one man who simply refused to quit, and while everyone knows the story of the car accident that should have ended his career and the injuries that would have stopped almost anyone else, what always struck me wasn't the comeback itself but the fact that he never asked for praise because of it. He returned because that's who he was, a man who only knew one rhythm in life: work, refine, repeat, and try again. Watching Hogan up close taught you quickly that talent can take you far, but resolve can pull you into places talent doesn't even know exist, and his discipline was unmatched, treating practice the way a master craftsman treats his tools, with respect, patience, and a quiet fire, repeating the same movements until they looked effortless, even though that ease was an illusion built on weight, history, and a standard he set for himself long before anyone else expected anything from him. That standard forced the rest of us to raise our level whether we wanted to or not, because you couldn't watch Hogan and then approach golf casually, he made you confront yourself. I still remember standing close enough once to hear the strike, the sound cleaner and sharper than anyone else's, like he stamped his name on every shot, so distinctive you could close your eyes and still know it was him, and that's when it hit me that greatness isn't always loud or charismatic, sometimes it's quiet, razor-sharp, almost severe. Hogan showed me that the pursuit of excellence is a private battle most people never see, because galleries only witness the final result, not the war fought inside, and he also taught me something deeper that took years to fully understand. True willpower isn't about muscling through every obstacle, it's about choosing, day after day, to become the kind of person who can stand in front of those obstacles without breaking. Hogan didn't just overcome hardship, he transformed it, refusing to let pain write his story, and whenever people ask me what he meant to the game, I tell them this: he reminded all of us that golf is earned, not handed out, not gifted, not lucked into, but earned shot by shot, morning after morning, until the grind becomes part of who you are. Looking back now, with more years behind me than ahead, I can see clearly how Hogan shaped not just the way I played golf, but the way I approached life itself, setting the tone for an entire generation, including me, with a simple truth: if you want something to last, you have to build it with your own hands, which is why he always comes first in my mind as the foundation, the measuring stick, and the reminder that real greatness begins long before anyone is watching. But there was another player who changed the sport in a completely different way, and when you talk about golfers who shifted the entire world of this game, Tiger Woods' name rises almost instantly. The first time I saw him moving down a fairway, there was a charge in the air around him, sharp, focused, impossible to ignore, and you knew immediately he wasn't just another talented young player, but something entirely different, a man who seemed to know the whole road map before the rest of us even found the starting line. What struck me most was his intensity, because Tiger never did anything halfway. His preparation, his fitness, and his mental routine all came from a blueprint my generation had never seen before, and while we were proud of our discipline, he turned discipline into an art form. Being good was never enough for him, he wanted to explore every edge of what greatness could mean, and by doing that he forced the entire sport to rethink its limits. During those stretches when he looked untouchable, it felt like he was playing a different game, and if you stood anywhere near the ropes you could feel the air change when he arrived. When Tiger stepped into a shot, people didn't hope for something special, they expected it, and time after time he delivered in moments that would have crushed most others. Pressure didn't chase him, he chased pressure, but what impressed me most wasn't the highlights, it was his relentless commitment to growth, rebuilding his swing, his body, and his mindset again and again. While most players cling to success once they taste it, Tiger was willing to tear success apart and rebuild it stronger, a kind of courage that often goes unnoticed, because from the outside it looks unnecessary, but from the inside it's the truth. You can't stand still in this game, not for a second. And beyond all of that, there was his presence, the way he could command total silence simply by standing over the ball. When Tiger stepped into an arena, galleries that normally buzzed with whispers would fall into a deep, almost sacred silence, not out of fear, but pure respect, because everyone knew they were watching a man rewrite the game in real time. And while he faced more challenges than most players ever will, what I admire isn't some flawless journey but his resilience, the kind forged through rising, falling, and choosing to rise again even stronger. Tiger's resilience wasn't about avoiding failure, it was about refusing to stay down, and when people ask why I hold him in such high regard, I tell them it's because he changed the expectations of golf itself, stretching what the sport believed was possible, and once you stretch a definition like that, it never snaps back. That's his legacy to me. And then there's someone completely different, a player whose greatest gift wasn't power or precision but pure imagination, because whenever I think about the beauty of golf that can't be taught, measured, or contained, my mind goes straight to Seve Ballesteros, a player who made you freeze in place just to see what magic he might pull off next, unpredictable by nature, brilliant by instinct, turning golf into performance, theater, and something that felt almost unreal when creativity met the perfect moment. What I admired most about Seve wasn't just his skill, but his freedom, and after speaking about a man who played with instinct and imagination, I have to talk about another giant in my life, someone who shaped my career in an entirely different way, Arnold Palmer. When people talk about my career, Arnold's name comes up almost as often as mine, and I wouldn't have it any other way, because our paths were tied together long before we understood what that meant. He was already a beloved force when I arrived, able to draw crowds simply by stepping onto the tee, and I learned quickly that being paired with Arnold meant pressure, attention, and an atmosphere unlike anything else in the game. What mattered most to me, though, wasn't just how he played but how he carried himself, with a warmth and humanity that made people feel connected to him, included in his story, even as he became a fierce, fearless competitor inside the ropes. Our rivalry was built on respect, never bitterness, pushing each other not to tear the other down but to rise higher because we believed the game deserved our very best, and because of that, I truly believe we both became better than we ever could have alone. What I admired most about Arnold was his spirit. He played with emotion, grit, and a fearless intensity, attacking when he was behind and attacking even harder when he was ahead, never holding back for a single moment. Watching Arnold taught me something powerful. The crowd feels everything you project, and if you give them honesty, they'll return it with loyalty. But it was outside the competition where Arnold left the deepest mark on my life. Despite all the pressure, expectations, and noise, he never stopped being generous or kind. And even when fans cheered against me because of their love for him, he treated me with fairness and grace. That kind of example stays with you and shapes how you choose to treat others. Over the years, what we shared grew into something far bigger than rivalry. It became friendship, respect, and a deep understanding of what it truly means to devote your life to a sport that asks everything of you. Some of my most meaningful memories weren't wins or losses, but walking beside Arnold, learning from him in silence, and reflecting on his character, fire, and integrity reminds me that being linked to him has never been a burden, it's been an honor. And then there's another man who shaped my journey in a completely different way, Gary Player. Gary's impact hit me through his discipline and spirit, and when I think of him, one word stands out above all: discipline, pure, relentless, and unquestionable. He never treated a single day casually, whether in competition, practice, or even walking from one shot to the next. Everything he did was intentional, precise, and fully committed. I remember watching him train while the rest of us were still waking up, treating his body like the engine of his career and tuning it every single day, with a level of dedication far ahead of its time, long before fitness and nutrition were common in golf. That commitment kept him strong, competitive, and locked in long after most players had faded, teaching me that longevity isn't luck, it's a choice made every day. But beyond the physical grind, it was his mindset that left the deepest impression, showing me that true discipline lives in both body and mind. Gary had this rare ability to stay positive even when everything around him seemed hopeless, facing brutal lies, rough conditions, and setbacks that would have frustrated almost anyone, yet he kept his head steady and his spirit clear, reacting almost always the same way, smiling, settling himself, and moving forward as if the challenge had been waiting for him all along. That attitude wasn't naive, it was deliberate, a statement that the moment would not control him. One memory that stays with me is watching him claw his way back into a tournament that looked lost, and while most players tighten under pressure, Gary grew calmer, trusting that if he stuck to his process, something good could still happen, teaching me that momentum isn't hoped for, it's created. Our friendship grew over years of travel, long practice rounds, and shared respect, and although we were different in many ways, we understood each other deeply because we both knew what this game demands, pushing each other silently yet relentlessly. What I admire most about him is his generosity. Gary never kept his wisdom to himself. If he learned something, he shared it to help, encourage, and lift up those around him, a rare spirit that leaves a lasting impression. He showed me that golf isn't just about striking the ball clean, but about preparing your mind, body, and spirit for everything the sport throws at you, approaching life with the same conviction he brought to the tee: be grateful, be disciplined, and be better today than yesterday. Looking back, Gary stands tall among the players who shaped me, never asking the game to go easy, but rising to meet whatever came his way. Now, having shared the 5 men who influenced me most, it feels right to reflect on what they truly left behind, the lessons that endured, the fire that remained, and the legacy that echoes through the sport. Hogan, Tiger, Seve, Arnold, and Gary weren't just great players, they were mirrors, each reflecting a different facet of what this game demands. Hogan taught me the weight of commitment, the kind that begins before the sun rises and continues long after the crowds have gone, shaping the way I approached every fairway, every moment, and every challenge throughout my life in golf. Tiger reminded me that the game never stands still, and neither can we, no matter how much we think we already understand it. Seve brought pure magic to the sport, proving that imagination has a place even in the most disciplined game. Arnold taught me heart, the kind that plays not just to win, but to lift the people watching. And Gary taught me to honor every single day, to treat the game and your body with the respect they deserve. When you put all of that together, you begin to see something crucial. Golf isn't just about power or perfection, it's about character, built on patience, honesty, resilience, and the humility that comes from knowing the course always has one more lesson waiting for you. I'm grateful for these men, for what they left with me and with the game, and at this stage in life, gratitude feels deeper, steadier, and more honest. I used to think legacy was about records, trophies, or statistics, but time teaches what truly matters. The legacy of these men isn't on leaderboards, it's in how they carried themselves when no cameras were around, in those quiet moments when character spoke louder than talent ever could. Each of them left a mark not because they were perfect, but because they were real. They worked, they stumbled, they rose, and they kept moving, treating the game with respect, and in return, the game revealed parts of who they were and parts of who I needed to become. That's the gift they gave me, and the gift I hope to pass on to anyone who believes this sport is more than numbers on a scorecard. Golf shapes you in ways you never expect, often long before you understand it, and now, with more memories behind me than ahead, I see the game in a softer, wiser, and somehow even more beautiful light. People ask what keeps golf alive after all these years. The answer is simple: it's the people who leave pieces of themselves behind, who give the game a heartbeat. Hogan, Tiger, Seve, Arnold, and Gary weren't just champions, they were storytellers, each writing their chapter in their own way, and whether you hold a trophy or not, you become part of that story the moment you step onto the grass and take a swing. That is the real magic of this sport. It welcomes you, tests you, humbles you, and teaches you, often all on the same afternoon. So if my voice carries any weight, let it be this: honor the game, honor yourself, and don't rush the lessons. Golf gives them slowly, but they last forever. Each of these men entered my life at exactly the right moment, not because fate demanded it, but because the game has a way of sending the right teachers when you need them most. They shaped who I became, not just as a golfer, but as a man. And if you're a young player listening, here's one thought: don't rush past the people around you. Watch them, learn from them, let their strengths push you higher, and let their flaws remind you that we're all fighting through the same beautiful struggle. In the end, golf gives you exactly what you put into it, nothing more, nothing less, and these 5 men taught me to give it everything.